Okay. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and joining us, the Conscious Together team, as we explore the subject of change, and particularly in the context of our personal development. So this is a really salient topic. It is core to all of our lives, the process of change through our lives, the change in our relationships with other people, our personal development, whether that's our personal development in a family context or a professional context, is all rooted in our experience of change and our ability to navigate that landscape. So today, Oliver, Avanti, and myself will explore this topic. We will open with some reflections and some thoughts, personal observations and experiences on why change can be so difficult to work with, why in particular it's so difficult to stick, to keep the new habits that we want to be applying to our lives. Why are they so frustrating, so elusive? So that's something that we're going to open with, and that will hopefully connect with you all, build some demonstrable empathy with each other, with the challenges that we face, because it can be very frustrating and very easy to point fingers at people who aren't affecting change in their lives, where they perhaps would be better placed if they did. And so helping understand some of the obstacles to that will help prepare us, for a bit of human empathy, which is very important when slinging rocks and mud at each other in life, and will also hopefully help position us to actually make more effective change, to make it work, to make it succeed. So that's where we're going to open in a minute. And then we're going to look at effective strategies for change, and mindfulness, of course, being one of those tools that we can have in our arsenal to help us make changes, personal development changes, make them last, make them stick, make them habits that we can sustain. So there you go. That's the structure for today. I hope you will join us on this journey. Remember, any questions or comments, as always, a shout out to like, subscribe, share before you've even seen the show. That's how confident we are that hopefully you'll like it, and we'll remind you at the end gently as well. And there you go. So we're going to open with a practice, and Avanti is going to kindly lead us in that before we kick off with the first question.
Thank you so much, Lorian. And today we're going to do a grounding practice to begin our session. It's been a quick minute. We've now come to the end of what we call a summer of activity, of sometimes vacationing too much and having to take a break from all the fun things we've done. And so to begin today's session, when we talk about change, when we talk about profound action for what we want to bring into our lives, the first step would be to ground ourselves, to become present with what we have and accept the current moment as it is. And to do this, I invite you today to sit back in a position that best suits you right now, in either a cross-legged position, sitting on your chair or your mat, and then bringing attention to your breathing, while making sure that your shoulders are relaxed, making very intentional changes in your posture if that helps you become more aware and alert as we get into our practice. So bringing your attention to our breath, into the anchor, which could be our abdomen. If not your breath, you could also bring your awareness, your attention down to your feet or to the seat, and to become present with how your body is showing up. Watching your breath going into your body and letting go as you exhale. Becoming aware of the movement inside the body. As you take full breaths going in through your nostrils and out through your nostrils. Now bringing our attention to the bottom of our feet. To the sole touching the floor. To the sensations that show up for you in your toes. Could be wriggling your toes. It could be your toes feeling the temperature of the mat around you. But becoming embodied in that essence, that awareness. As you observe the relaxation that comes in within your toes, as you bring your attention down to it. Observing your thoughts as they come rushing in. As you hear voices or thoughts racing in about the practice itself, about how your body is feeling in the moment, about the sounds and distractions that are showing up, but bringing your attention back to the sensation in the tip of your toes, on your feet. As you bring your attention down, becoming aware to all the changes that are brought about in the sole of the foot. Maybe a sweaty surface, possibly a tingling, or a pleasant sensation after all. Just being open to what is showing up for you right now without wanting to change anything at all. And now bring your attention from the big toe to the second toe. To watch your attention either shift or move, or watch the sensation that it creates in the toe. Watch how the muscle twitches as you move your attention to the third toe. and the fourth, and the little toe. As you bring your awareness now to the rest of the sole of the foot. Moving your attention down to the heel of your feet now. As you watch the foot go from state to state, maybe a more relaxed state as of now. And then bring your attention back to our breath, back to the surrounding, to the room you're seated in right now. And to open your eyes when you're ready to join the session. Thank you, Lorian.
Thank you, Avanti. That's lovely. Very calming, very grounding. Yeah, nice one. Thank you. So, change then, personal development. Why is this so frustrating? Why is this so difficult? Why can't we just adopt the behaviors and the activities that we believe to be better for us and cast aside the temptation of the activities and the behaviors that we think are not so good for us? And I want to stress that this won't be an exhaustive list, because that will take a long time. And I think scientists and neuroscientists are still investigating and exploring this subject as well. So this is, as always, with this scientific endeavor, work in progress based on, to the best of our ability and knowledge and understanding at the time, what is effective and accurate. But these things are moving goalposts, and new things come to light on a regular basis, which is what makes this sort of topic so fascinating. So we will explore some of the aspects that make this so frustrating, so difficult, and we will then go from there. So in order to throw something out there for possible discussion, or something to build off, or to counter, I would suggest that one of the key factors that makes change, sticking to change, so difficult is the fact that we are creatures of habits, that our routines, our habitual patterns are deeply wired in our brain. The old adage, the neurons that fire together wire together, i.e. they are building more solid, more reliable connections that are fundamentally harder to pull apart. So when we are looking to develop a new behavior or to give up an old one, then that means that we are moving against the weight of our previous habit. And the longer that we've been doing that activity, behaving in a certain way, the harder it will be to shake that behavior, right? It's like if you are used to getting up at a certain time every day, let's say 7 o'clock in the morning for sake of argument, having to switch to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, or even staying in bed till 8 or 9 o'clock, is actually a lot harder than you think, right? If your body is used to operating on that level, and it will keep triggering you to wake up at that time if that's a pattern that you have developed. And so even if you retired or something, or were on holiday, you will probably find yourself waking up at that time habitually. And no doubt by the end of your holiday, you will have adjusted your body clock, and then you need to shift it back in order to go back to your regular routine, which will be hard again. So that's one of the things to bear in mind. Whatever the changes, whatever the personal development aspect you're focusing on, you are working against the weight of your past behaviors, your past experiences, the tools that have, in quotes, worked for you. And therefore, shifting that just simply isn't easy. It's not as simple as just saying, that's it, I'm going to stop doing this now and I'm going to pick up this behavior. It very rarely works like that. So those are my opening thoughts. Oliver, Avanti, do you want to chuck something else into this melting pot?
Yeah, maybe I'll share a little bit. Change is hard. You reminded me there's actually a song from Michael Jackson called Change too, ending with make a change. It's calling because change is so hard. I think he was talking about more on the sociology level. In the Chinese culture, again, there is a proverb. We all know that rivers and mountains are hard to change. Rivers and mountains sometimes stands not only like geographically, those geologically, that those ideas, actual rivers, Ganges, times rivers are still there, right? With thousands of years past. And the mountain Himalaya is still there too. But sometimes it's represents government, political regiment, which is also hard to change, right? At least at ancient time, dynasties last a lot longer, a few decades to a few hundred years. Anyways, it's said it's even easier to change the rivers and mountains than to change one's habit or personality or habit. So yeah, it is right. People realize that, and still we don't change, and that shows how hard it is. I think Lauren mentioned a very important point, that these habits stay very deeply somewhere, right? Today's neuroscience are revealing the different connections of this different part of the brain. That's their way to explain. And there were psychologists who were talking about the ideas of subconsciousness. And maybe there's even different layers of subconsciousness. In some of the religion, like Buddhism, it says there's a conscious, and then there is a subconscious for the, I think it's the mona or something like that in Sanskrit. It's like the seventh conscious. And then there is the eighth called alaya. And of course, there may be biologists would explain this is a gene or genetically somehow structured. There's a mechanism. No matter what kind of mechanism or theory behind that, the one thing is true. It's hidden. It stays a very, very deep. That's why when most people are trying to make a change, it still is really at the superficial level, right? The actions you take and the understanding is more at the superficial level. So you try to change. Myself, for example, I used to smoke for 17 years. It took me 17 years to quit. Of course, it took just a second to start. And then why is that? I have found that it's not the cigarette itself. It's something, either anxiety, you try to find something. Maybe you try to find the certainty. That's one. I could remember that my last cigarette was with someone that I really want, a friend I trust. Although after a long time of quitting smoke, he came in visiting. I thought if I don't go accompany him, that would be not polite enough, all those. So there is a kind of fear, or a fear of losing a friendship, or maybe at the same time losing security, that I was expecting him, all those kind of things. Anyways, it's hidden very, very deep. It's not that, sometimes it's not the habit itself. I guess first of all, it's deep. So anything that, or any means or tools that we want to bring in to make changes happen, we have to look at that. Does that touch the very, very bottom or that bottom line that's hidden very deep. So I guess we have to, well, maybe in the meantime, because it is hard, let's put, as Lauren put it, empathy on others and ourselves, right? If we try to make a change and we don't accomplish that quickly, don't blame ourselves. Of course, don't blame others, because we're sure they are trying or they made their effort, right? Anyways, that's my thought when you brought this up.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Oliver. I think that's really nice. And I think that's such a key thing to be aware of. And this really ties into some of the solutions, is what does the behavior actually represent? Because it's not the act of smoking, for example, right? The cigarette itself. It's actually what the cigarette means to you. And as you said, I think you mentioned sort of anxiety. So a lot of people will associate smoking cigarettes with feeling calmer, with de-stressing, right? So that becomes for them a psychological anchor, a tool that they rely on to calm them down when they're feeling stressed. So it's not simply the cigarette itself and the act of smoking, but it's this psychological pattern and reliability when faced with an emotional obstacle in life, right? So when life gets tough, and whatever that looks like, however that manifests itself, your default pattern, your habit will be to reach for a cigarette, for example, to make you feel calmer. And if you don't understand that and you're just thinking, well, it's just a cigarette and I can stop, then you are fundamentally missing the root cause of the issue that you actually need to address. So again, just another example, like cake, for example, it's, cake isn't the problem. The problem is what the cake means to you and why you are overly reliant on cake as a means of fixing an emotional state or problem that you believe you have. And I think, Oliver, again, you were talking a lot about the subconscious and unconscious mind. And again, a lot of this process is typically very reflexive, very unconscious, very subconscious. And this is where, not wanting to jump too far ahead into what our discussion will be, this is one of the things that mindfulness can really help us with, I think. So yeah, lovely. Thank you. Avanti, over to you. Anything you want to, change, add, throw out, build in? What's your thoughts here?
I feel like we've covered a lot about what changes and why it's so difficult. And I think I want to add into the next couple of questions. I think we've spoken about this from a neurological perspective, psychological, as well from a subconscious sort of different depth. So I think we've said mostly what in terms of the context that we're trying to set. So let's keep going, and I will add in the next question.
Okay, super. Thank you, Avanti. So I think that's some of the essence, isn't it, of change and the barriers that we have with it. And I do want to re-stress the fact that understanding the emotional attachment that we have to a behavior, or the emotional resistance that we have to something that we want to adopt, will have a profound impact on our likelihood to succeed. So, for example, you might know intellectually that exercise is good for you. I don't think there's a lot of dispute around that. It's one of the most well-researched and scientifically established truisms. And this is especially true for neurological decline, right? So mental health, physical exercise is one of the most reliable tools in our arsenal for preventing neurological degeneration and resistance to neurological diseases. So it's well worth doing. We know this. However, the emotional resistance that we might have to exercise, for example, right, not liking being out of breath, not like being sweaty, having a perception which attaches an emotional weight to it, that exercise is really hard work, that perhaps there's danger to exercise. For example, you might hurt your back lifting weights, for example, is something that is often thrown around, and people know someone who's hurt a back through lifting something, whether it's in a gym context or whether it's simply in life. And so people can get very anxious about the risk of harming themselves through exercise. So there's a variety of reasons that we might have an emotional barrier to something that is so understood to be profoundly positive for us, and yet it can create this big weight with which we are fighting against. And we can battle some of that, I suppose, moving now into the change element of this process, right? So we can battle some of that with education, with understanding, challenging our beliefs about a set of systems, right? So with it, for example, with exercise, that might be hiring a professional physical health coach, right? A personal trainer, for example, to show you how to do exercises safely and correctly to minimize the chance of injury. In terms of, smoking, for example, it might be making sure, and this information is readily available, and you'd have to be hiding under a rock probably to avoid it in this context, but educate yourself about the consequences, the health consequences of the behavior that you're looking to remove from your life, right? What's the likely cost implications if you don't address it in the long run? So that educational aspect can be really crucial. So, Avanti, hand back to you if you're happy to, around the opportunities that we have to support change in a healthy way. So opportunities to support personal development, either through mindfulness or through some other means.
And I think considering that I'm a big one for mindfulness and how it allows you to bring change. Like you've said, I think belief systems, testing what our beliefs are regarding an addiction that we have, and I call it addiction with a reminder that it may not be very big, or it depends. For example, our social media consumption could be an addiction, and the amount of time we spend on our phones could be looked at as an addiction. And if we want to change that behavior, the simple fact will be, what is my relationship to my phone? What are times of the day that I will pick up my phone more often? And technology like apps within our phones allow us to see what time of the day we pick up the phone most, right? So these are tips that will allow us to say, oh, I really need to reduce picking up my phone 25 times in 10 minutes in the morning. What makes me do that? What is my energy level at that time of the day? What is there a mood that I associate with? And I think that is a great step to sort of start reflecting into what will need to be done to bring change about. So getting information about this habit and pre-planning will be the first big step, right? And then mindfulness, to be able to then become aware, find out how I feel without my phone. Do I feel anxiety? Do I feel fear? What is that emotion that is showing up inside of me? Is what I want to watch through the practice of mindfulness. When I don't pick my phone right now, what does that make me feel? What is my relationship to it? So being able to gather information about the habit is our first step to even trying to change it. Why do I want to change it? What is the habit I want to change it? And then to break it down to say, okay, so if I'm feeling antsy and anxious, what will it take for me to do something different? What else can I explore, which is a healthier way to use to release my anxiety? Instead of sitting on my phone, for example, I could say, okay, I'm feeling anxious. This is a call for a 10-minute walk in the park. And that could be a more healthier form of releasing that emotion rather than releasing it across social media. Of course, our posts are going to be more negative. Our reflections are going to be wonky because our limbic system is full on trying to alert us to everything that might go wrong. So to just step out and find more information about when I'm doing this habit and how often, that'll be the first step.
Yeah, I love that. I love the planning element there, and I think it is taking it seriously, and it's not relying on, and this builds into the sort of the changing the habit, because the habit is a routine that is automatic, and if you want to change that, then it's going to require planning and deliberate action and activity. So yeah, absolutely, I love that. That really is a very powerful, a necessary strategy. You can't just rely on chance to get you out of an ingrained habit. You've got to take it seriously, and that means doing the analysis, understanding the patterns of behavior, the frequency of something, and as you say, using mindfulness to understand what's going on perhaps in the background when you're reaching for your cigarette, reaching for your phone. What's the what are the thought patterns, what's the affect, what's the are you feeling pleasant, unpleasant? Is there an emotional tone there? Yeah, lovely, like it. Oliver.
Yeah. I like what Avanti has just shared. And yes, the preparation is very important. I always like to say that there's always the other side of the coin. I know in the last part we were talking about how difficult it is to change. However, I don't want people to think that way when we, trying to make change. Staying here in US, there are always American friends asking me, "Hey, I want to learn Chinese." I said, "Good. Please don't say the next word because I know what it is." People say, but it is very hard. The number one trick to study a foreign language, I think, first is don't think it is hard. Just think it is easy, or just don't think. Just don't think it's hard. Same thing for change. On the other hand, change is possible once we figure out the whole mechanism, right? We were talking about how deep it is. There are ways. Usually we just overlooked the challenge or how difficult it is, because I think you guys know in military there is a cookie that's compressed, right? Just little tiny, but you can just use a little bit, but it can later becomes very good. It's compressed cookie. Or in today's, maybe in the computer world, it's the zip. It's all zipped file. Don't look at it as if just a regular file. I'm glad Avanti mentioned mindfulness. Mindfulness is a very effective tool on playing things or playing this video in a slow motion, so that you could recognize what is actually happened. Right? In a slow motion, you realize, because when it's too fast, it's like a bullet, right, hitting an apple. You don't really see. You just see the hole, but you didn't realize how that hole was formed, right? Was made. So mindfulness can help you look at each individual step. Just back to the cake or the cigarette issue. Right? When you want to smoke a cigarette, you realize, oh, there is something. If you're mindful enough, you realize, okay, I'm now a little bit, anxiety happening, so that I want a cigarette to do that. And I know after I lit up the cigarette, immediately regret will come. If you're able to just play this, same thing for the cake, right? You want to get that cake. Okay, I feel a little bit hungry, but do we really need food? Of course not. In most of the time, it's just you feel you want to just do something just to maybe replace that feel of being anxious and things like that, nervousness. So mindfulness definitely is one of the most important effective tool to help you realize what's going on. And of course, before that, I really love the idea of preparation. Even the traditional meditation, people would think is, okay, let's sit and then calm down or thinking nothing. forget all those monkeys, or monkey mind, monkeys and horses. But it doesn't really work that way, especially for people of today's. Right? Today's we receive so much information. You got the phone, you got a computer, travel so much more, and anyways, you receive a lots of stimuli and information. So the best thing is to traditional and like the it's called analytical meditation first. Right? Think about the mechanism. Think about how it works. Right? When you are not in a rush to get a cake or get a cigarette, you're not that moment, right? When you have time, you can sit down calm and just play that slow motion, or realize what scientists have to say, or the meditation master have to say, mindfulness master have to say about how our mind works. Right? When we realize that, that's cultivating a habit in the meantime also, but it's a good habit. When that view is accepted deeply in our mind, and then it's easier to go further, to meditate, or to overcome that impulse to get the cake or cigarette when it is, when you are in that scenario. That's what I have to share.
Thank you, Oliver. Yeah, again, lovely. And I really like the sentiment of not sort of setting yourself up to fail, essentially, by approaching it from a position that the change is difficult, and that you can't learn the new language. Chinese is difficult though, Oliver, though. I think we have to be honest about that.
No, no, it's not.
So before we descend into a war, but yeah, so no, I think that's really noteworthy and worthwhile. And on that subject, I would like to sort of add that I think breaking down the objective into the smallest possible steps, and this ties back into sort of Avanti's planning sort of element of it as well, I think, but make change as simple as possible for yourself, right? So that means removing barriers to change. And for example, so with physical exercise, get your gym kit out ready, something as simple as that, right? Putting it out at the end of your bed or whatever the night before, so that it's ready for you in the morning. Put your trainers out by the door. Know how you're going to get to the gym, know how long it's going to take you, all these things. If the getting to the gym's a barrier, what can you do at home instead, right? Particularly if the weather's inclement, if you've got bad weather, trying to start running in the winter might be extra challenging, because you might not want to get wet and cold, and you might not like running in the dark. So what can you do you can't remove the dark, but is there some way of changing your training strategy for the winter, for example, if that's a barrier to you, to help you do it? Or you bring your change process forward, so you're doing it in the summer months, building the habit whilst the weather is more likely to be dry and pleasant, so that you are already well in the mode of the activity by the time that the weather changes and things become more challenging. It's always worth remembering that when times are toughest, and we all face tough times, no matter what sort of life we lead, and no matter how mindful we are, we will always be presented with challenges. And the more stressful our lives become, the more difficult the challenges are, the more likely we are to revert to old patterns and behaviors. So the more likely we are to go for the cigarette, because we believe at a very deeply rooted subconscious level that it will make us feel calmer. And we know that pattern of activity has worked for us time and time again. For however many months or years of our life, that solution is ingrained in us for when times get tough. And same with, when you're exercising, right? If you're a fair weather exerciser, for example, that's all well and good, but at some point the rain's going to come. What's your solution for that? And that ties into, again, Avanti's sort of planning sort of concept, and Oliver, to your essence of not setting yourself up to fail. Yeah, I like that. Thank you, guys. Does anyone have anything else that they want to spin in here? I've got another reflection sort of back towards the beginning as to why change is difficult, I'm afraid I want to throw in there. But I don't know if anyone else has got anything else at the minute on mindfulness and change.
I think we have to, and this, like I said, it's such a wide topic, change itself. And so being able to continue with the change that we observe, I think doing it repeatedly over a period of at least 21 days, like we say, to change a habit, you need to have repeated the new habit at least 21 times for you to remember it and sort of keep it within you, and to start relying on it. So the repetition of a new habit is equally important as knowing what you want to change. So there's steps, and we could talk about that in a little bit, but I'll let you go back to the point that you wanted to bring in here.
Yeah, all right, thank you, Amanda. Yeah, I'll bring us back to the start. And it's just, and this was sort of prompted through the discussion, was why is change so difficult? And typically the things that we want to give up, and this was prompted by the mobile phone, right? But it applies equally to cakes, to cigarettes, to alcohol, whatever it is that we're trying to, because invariably we're trying to change habits that we believe are not optimal for us, right? We're either spending too much time on our mobile phone, it's making us anxious, etc., etc. We're drinking too much or too regularly, or we're eating too much cake or too regularly, or whatever it is, doesn't really matter. The principle is the same. We want to change something because we believe it is not optimal for us. One of the reasons it's so difficult is these things are essentially built to attract us, right? So cake, for example, is the perfect balance of sugars and fats and salts to be hyper palatable, right? To be super attractive. And we've still got this really ancient sort of wiring in terms of looking and wanting highly nutritious, calorie dense foods, right? So when we were hunter gathering and all that sort of stuff, right, or actually for most of human evolution, being able to get that many calories in a small compact dose would have been the mother stone of all good things in life, right? It's like finding honey. It would have been really valuable and so important to us, right? When we were struggling to find food. We're now in this age of hype superabundance. If you're watching this, you're probably not struggling to feed yourself, right? But yet these foods, these hyperpalatable foods, are more available than ever. So we're surrounded by them, and we are wired at a very deep level to want them, right? They are tasty. And so these things, and they're dressed in compelling packaging and all that sort of stuff. None of this is by accident, right? These are all very carefully designed and researched to maximize the opportunity to attract our attention and make us more likely to consume them. Same with the mobile phones. The technology is designed to make us want these devices, to find them appealing, to want to keep picking them up. Facebook notifications and things like that, they built in a delay deliberately to activate the anticipation in us, right? So when you open the app, it delays telling you that there's a notification. That's an intentional thing. That's not just internet lag, right? That's designed to have you hooked and to make you anticipate the reward of having a notification, right? So these things are engineered to capture us, and that makes it hard as human beings. Our evolutionary psychology and biology is being used against us in essence, right? And not from a position of malice. This isn't a conspiracy theory, right? These things, anyone who wants to sell you anything is going to work in a certain framework to maximize the chances of succeeding in selling you something, right? That doesn't make them evil, right? That means that they're good at reading, and understanding people and applying that to get you to buy their hopefully very good product. So these things are weighted against you, right? And particularly in relation to corporations who have lots of money to put into these things, right? It's the body of a lot of people doing this research and applying this skill against one little you, right? So, you think you've got the weight of Coca-Cola, right? Think how many millions and billions of dollars they've spent over the years perfecting their recipe, perfecting their marketing. And you've got this cultural thing. And I think we talked about very briefly, I think, Oliver, you mentioned the cultural thing. And again, this is a massive topic. We don't have time to cover it all. But you've got this whole cultural ethos around these super brands, right? Apple and Coca-Cola and whatever, right? And that carries a weight, whether you like it or don't like it. It's a huge juggernaut, a behemoth of psychological math that you need to overcome if you're trying to change a pattern of behavior around it. So yeah, there's a lot of weight there. But again, being mindful is the crucial thing. Understanding that these things are being applied to you and understanding the impact they have and why will help you free yourself from that, and being mindful to your behaviors, to your reactions, your reflexes, your emotions, the physical sensations in the body, the patterns of thoughts will profoundly support your ability to break yourself free from that cycle. There you go.
Yes, absolutely. And well said. I think it covers the gamut of change, so to say, Lorian. I know you will say that you spoke now for a bit, but I think absolutely support every bit that you said.
Cool, thank you. All right, lovely. So Oliver, is there anything else you want to add? Otherwise, we'll hand over to you to close.
Yeah, it's just make you drinking Coca-Cola make you feel like you're the president of the United States or you're in Hollywood. Yeah, it's how marketing works. But back to, I think I'll share this over the reflection. But again, the you or ourself, an individual, is relatively small if you compare with that juggernaut of marketing. But in the meantime, we're big also because it's all about our own mind. I'll share that later.
Lovely, thanks, Oliver.
Sure.
So, are you happy to take us in a closing reflective practice?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lorraine. And let's make yourself comfortable in a position. I would suggest we sit straight because this is a more, as I said, is an analytical meditation. But feel free to take any other position than sitting straight. Okay, let's watch our breath for a few moments. And keep your eyes, lower the gaze to a 45 degree to the floor or your desk. Relax as much as you can. And bring our attention to the emotions and thoughts that's happening in our mind. Okay, bring yourself into a scenario like what we mentioned, like you want to eat a cake, dessert, maybe smoke a cigarette or take a drink that you actually don't want as much. And try to check what is behind that want. Or maybe sometimes this is not a food or something physical, or just emotion that you want to yell at someone. What is behind that? For example, the yelling is really because somebody did something really bad, that really hurts you, or there's something else involved. For example, you just had a bad conversation with someone, or just something that just stuck in your mind that make you insecure, for example. Maybe it's a conversation with work colleague, your boss, or maybe with spouse. Let's get deeper into why you feel insecure because of that conversation. In that work scenario, you may feel that the manager doesn't like you. Is that true? Or is just because he or she was just in a bad mood or felt insecure also? If possible, drill down to even deeper layer and see what is really true, or maybe how untrue about that feel of insecurity, uncertainty. I'd like to encourage everyone to do this kind of observation very regularly, because by realizing how untrue that our day-to-day anxiety is, then you can realize how unnecessary that we keep in that state. And then, of course, in order even to doing this kind of deep investigation, we need some mindfulness practice like what we did in this beginning of this short reflection. Watch your breath, sit down, calm down, or watch your emotions and thoughts. Realizing thoughts are just thoughts, and let all these become a kind of habit, a new and good habit. Okay, thank you for doing this short reflection with me, with us. And open your eyes now if they're closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Oliver. That's brilliant. Really nice. Thanks for helping bring today's session to a close. So thank you all very much for joining us today. Change and personal development is a massive topic, and one that no doubt we will revisit and break down a little bit further in the weeks to come. But we hope that you found something here to help you sustain your change goals a little bit, to help you understand maybe why things haven't worked out so well in the past and what you might do to create yourself a better, brighter future for tomorrow. So again, as always, please like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell. Put any questions down below, comments on how you navigate change, any top tips that you have in your experience, or any barriers that you've discovered that you're looking for a solution for. Drop them in the comments below and we'll see if we can offer any insights. So once again, thank you to my colleagues, Avanti and Oliver, and thank you for being conscious together. See you next time.
See you next time.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Yeah.
Have a
See you
nice
next time.
day.